UK and India have links that are historic, cultural, economic and social. A recent showcase event in New Delhi highlighted research projects that have captured these shared experiences. Appropriately enough, it was called Jalsa, which means celebration. Supported by the Arts and Humanities Research Council, the work examines many aspects of a legacy that is providing ongoing mutual benefits. Dr. Nandini from the University of Liverpool is looking at India and the Middle East in the 16th and 17th centuries.
This is a particularly interesting period of time because so many of the preconceptions that we tend to associate with the colonial period hadn't really been established at this point. And there's a genuine sense of both perhaps confusion and misunderstanding on one part of both the countries and representatives of both countries, but also genuine communication and a need and wish really to understand the two different cultures, which is particularly in tune with the general interest in both countries now. So there are lots of parallels, I think, which I'd quite like to excavate.
Nandini's work is funded by an AHRC fellowship, which she says has given her not only the time for the detailed archive research involved in tracing travellers and ships and the networks of connections between people. In addition, she says, it's opened up new opportunities.
Part of it also involves being able to communicate that research to the general audience outside academia. Part of the HRC support that I have been also involved in is the HRC's collaboration with the BBC. And they have set up recently a scheme called the New Generation Thinkers. And as a part of that, I'm involved in creating programs for the BBC.
This research is one of many areas featured in a new AHRC publication that was launched at the Jalsa event. It's called The UK and India, a Partnership for Research. Another project featured involves Professor Sushila Nasta and Dr. Florian Stadler from the Open University. They're looking at the history of the Indian presence in Britain. This has included a touring exhibition called Beyond the Frame. It concentrated on the role of South Asians within British society from 1858 to 1950.
We wanted to highlight really that this history of the early Asian experience in Britain is not a niche history, but that it's actually a fundamental part of the island's story. Whether you think about the suffragette movement, whether you think about Britain's so-called finest hour in World War II, or whether you think about it in terms of influencing policy in Parliament, I think that was a very important thing to bring across to not only a British Asian audience, but also to a wider white British audience.
Above all, we developed, as the title suggests, Beyond the Frame is not only a way of thinking about those orthodox histories differently, it's also to do with the depth we had beyond those frames, which was the archival research, which was supported by digital networks, digital database, a digital site at the British Library, school workshops in India, and an exhibition tour. And there's been a response at the highest level from the Foreign Office down to schools in India and public audiences.
Dr. Jerry Dabu from the University of Exeter is examining the cultural history of Southall in West London. She says with the funding from AHRC, they've been able to set up a variety of activities. For instance, pupils at Featherstone High School designed a coat of arms for Southall and collected oral history recordings.
The school children actually went and interviewed their parents and grandparents about their stories of migration and then posted those up in the blog. And the school also organised a school-wide competition to design a new coat of arms for Southall. So they got in the history classes, they researched how coats of arms are formed, and then the school children went away and drew up their own representing how they felt Southall was today.
Completely new research ground has been covered by Dr. Nicholas Magriel through the School of Oriental and African Studies in London and a project called Growing into Music. This looks at children in 6 countries, including India. Nicholas has been working with North Indian classical musicians and Rajasthani folk musicians. Involving around 25 families, Nicholas has been watching the children's progress over a 3-year period. It's providing insight into how music traditions are passed on from one generation to the next.
The output of this project is mainly video, though we'll also be putting out a jointly authored book. People look at the finished music, at what you buy on CDs or see on the stage, but even in India, people know very little about what happens behind the scenes, behind closed doors in the houses of musicians.
You can find out about these and other projects in the AHRC publication, The UK and India, a Partnership for Research.